Hello everyone, this is Anne-Marie and we are taking a look at the broad indices today. This is going to actually be a really, for the SPY, the Q, and the Qs in the IWM, we're going to be looking from a daily chart perspective, but we're going to expand and look at the Nasdaq 100 and the SPX and the Dow so that we can see what we are looking at from a grand perspective. Let's start with the Qs since we're sitting right here. And here's what we are looking at. This is, it would be a bat. If it stopped here, it would be a crab. If it extended here, they're calling it an alternate bat because it expands into the region here. Here's the kicker. These retracement levels are very tight, meaning the pullback, that's 38.2, the extension, that's 88.6. All of this looks very, very tight, holding the formation. That is going to very likely pull itself forward. Now this says that I've got this marked at 18 days. It might take more, it might take less. Notice the beginning of the end of this bullish formation is right here at the fill of this nasty gap. So we've got here, we've got a gap here. It slipped into the gap here but popped up above that region. I really suspect that this chart is going to roll. Here are some speed lines. I love these speed lines. They work really, really well. They tell you when a chart is slowing down very, very specifically. So I suspect that this chart will easily come into this speed line, bounce around a little bit, maybe chop up a bit, and then continue downward in the larger formation. I see a lot of bearish pattern events, but a lot of things stuck at congestion. So what do? As always, we look for support, we look for resistance, then we take a look at momentum, and when it breaks that area, we watch for confirmation or the jump down into the space. All right, so let's take a look at the IWM. The IWM looks quite different to the others. It is breaking up into this space and losing the level. Here are some short speed lines that are sitting right here. If we take, because this chart is so noisy and essentially in a sideways pattern, speed lines are hard to draw on a very large space. Okay, but we can see clearly same sort of thing, drop down into the level. There's a gap here, but indeed closed up above that range.
1645.
Now, what we have to do is watch it at about this 118.50 area. If it closes under there for the week, it may chop around a little bit, but in all likelihood, look at this very flat line here in this ribbon. Pretty much assures that it's either going to come back to test it or come back into the main line of congestion. So we'll just have to watch this. But again, a little bit bearish in terms of the general formation. As far as whether there's a butterfly or crab or bat, whatever in there, a little bit uncertain because mostly it's a very, very choppy space. And so far, really what we have is an expanding megaphone that's really coming into the midline of the megaphone here, because if we can draw a line straight down that way, we can see these ranges. So I suspect over the coming weeks we are going to be anywhere between this 113 to 120-ish area, but not really seeing us breaking out at this particular juncture, but we will move ahead with that analysis as time goes forward. All right, so let's take a look at SPY. Spent a lot of time here in the SPY looking at some very, very important levels. Here's the speed line for SPY right here. It came lost, came down, moved back up, double top style environment with this great big wick. Not really sure what's going on with that, but we are down here at the bottom of the speed line, but like all the others, we've closed above it. If we have a day close underneath this speed line, chances are it'll pop up into the rejection area, and then we'll have a chance for a short. That's really ultimately what it is that I'm looking at. Now, if it bounces and holds the region up here, it's going to get caught in this space. So there's a lot of very, very interesting stuff going on here, but most all of it looks like downside momentum. And I know these charts are very clean because really all we have is this ribbon sitting here, but for right now we're just looking at form to help us along the way. Let's take a look at the S&P 500. This is what I posted here, and so let's just have the IG template on here with the ribbon. We can see that this is a very, very large formation. It started at 2009, and so what we have to look at is really how close this is to completion. Now it's run from one end to the other. Listen, this is one of the most straightforward and well-formed patterns that I've had in quite some time. Still just using the ribbon. See the expansion? Look at how linear these lines are. I mean, they really are lines. They're not curves. They're so straight. And what we are coming into from this formation, which is a series of GAN formations from this wave action event, what we're looking at is a topping right here. Now, I drew this probably around June, maybe a little bit after that, perhaps July, but it's been a long time. And so now we have these 4 areas of interest, and my thought is that we are going to dip down into this region. This is a quadrant that we're going to kind of hold over the first quarter, I think, and then we'll see. But for the entire year, I believe we're going to sit between 1772 and 2188. That's really what I think that this chart's got left on it. If it ends up drifting further, we're going to reevaluate if it loses the 1772. I really do not suspect that it will. But if it does, it's going to mean that this C leg right here is going to have itself a wave retracement. And if you say, well, you know, what is that? The standard wave retracement for a leg harmonic is anywhere from 38.2 to 61.8. And 61.8 pulls it into a relative space of congestion, but my guess is that it would slip into the 70.07 area more than likely, which would be somewhere around here, and that's 14.02. But I really do not foresee that one occurring. I think we're going to hold our levels and be a little bit sideways. Maybe 2016 we come back and say something else, but for 2015 my thought is that we stay well within this range right here. All right, let's take a look next at the Dow. Same sort of formation, although not at completion, meaning the S&P 500 moving a little bit with more strength, but still quite linear. Look at the lines here. Pretty linear press, pretty extended at the top of its overall range on the year. This should give us, again, a little bit of a pullback. I suspect we come into 16,600. Easily, I think we come into 16.8. But we shall see. Right now we can see candlesticks of indecision really beginning to build here. Top levels for the Dow this year looks like about 19.4, maybe 2009. Now some people are looking at some very, very big expansions, and some people are not looking at anything quite that big. But if we just look at the simple quadrants and use the 50% rule, we're going to be able to pace this out really fairly well for those of us that are looking maybe to trade part of our portfolio in a longer term fashion and divide our skill events between short-term money and then longer-term swing money. We'll be able to use these. It's still going to be a stock picker's game like it has been for a while. And although, with the acceleration during this year, it's pretty fair. Everybody moving up, a lot of people moving up. So that's really what it is that we're going to be looking for there. Major expansion, 19.5. The general space, however, probably going to be coming back into 1660, and maybe we see 1610, and this movement here between the first and the second quarter, we should have this sort of dip. Remember, we are looking at monthly charts. Okay? Last one is the Nasdaq. Nasdaq, of course, looks completely different, but notice the double top. From January 2000, you could say, oh, there's a bunch more up there. Yes, but we can clearly see that there's some noise here. We're going to use the quadrant, right? We're going to look for these breakout spaces and then seeing how the chart moves from range to range. This area here into the 4,000 area easily looks like a pullback space. 4,050. The third quadrant of this major move for the last 2.5 years or so really looks to be right down here at 38.80. I would say based on all this congestion to the left, we might have something coming into 37.66. So what's going to be great is this particular video, this style of video, I'm going to be doing at the end of every quarter so that we can match these through the formations in terms of long-term assessment of what's going on and how we can overall strategize for what it is that we're doing. And we can see it develop, make some changes as they come, but raw form tells us that we've got a little bit of a drift to the downside. All right? Take care. Have yourselves a great week.